Thank you guys for tuning in. On this episode of the Big Dog Talk podcast, Big Charles and Big Shay, we want to get into the topic of vulnerability. We want to dive deep into what it means to be vulnerable. Is being vulnerable easy? But we also want to share some of our most vulnerable moments individually, as a family, and as a married couple. So stick around. This could get juicy.
You sure you want to do that?
Let's go.
In order to get vulnerable, you have to be intimate.
Well, let's get into that intimate space, Big Charles.
All right.
Stick around, y'all.
Here we go. I see you, Big Shay. Welcome back to another episode of the Big Dog Talk podcast, and it's me, the one and only Big Charles, baby.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Big Shay, and I'm back in the building.
Let's go. How y'all feeling today? I'm excited about working today. How about yourself?
I'm excited. I'm excited about working. It's always good to be back on the mic, talking, sharing with you, sharing this space with you.
Listening to the bird chirp in the background.
Annoying.
Always. Every time we get on the mic, Stella want to start talking and going crazy.
Every time. Trying to steal the shine. Not today, Stella. Relax.
Y'all
Relax.
notice anything different about this table? Y'all notice anything different? Listen. Yeah, you already know where I'm getting. Y'all know anything different, huh? So,
Yeah.
My wife had an incident at work this week where she had to save a child.
Oh, Lord.
She felt like being heroic.
I did.
So my wife's finger is over here bandaged up because right now in this moment, that finger is dingling. It's not dislocated. It's not broken. It's a tendon that
It got disconnected.
and it's wrapped up and bandaged because that finger is looking very scary.
Yeah, it's looking strange, y'all.
So do you want to tell them to share with the community the story of how you were being an athlete?
Listen, thank the good Lord for all of those days at Orange Theory and working out because it came in handy. So I'm at work. It's a normal happy Friday. You know, we looking forward to Fridays. We having fun with the kiddos. We're outside. Next thing you know, my antennas go up because I can see, accidents happening with the little ones before it even happens. So I look over at our, slide structure and I can tell that one of our little adventurous new 2-year-olds is definitely about to fall off the slide. I run over. I'm talking about I run over like something from a movie. I grab her by whatever kind of shirt she was wearing. I tumble down. I roll over. I'm looking like a superheroine with a cape. And I saved this baby so much so that she never hit the ground.
There you go.
She never hit the ground. Only my body hit the ground, protected her from hitting the ground. I'm rolling over. I'm protecting her. She's crying because obviously it feels scary because she can tell her body is falling. Kids are definitely aware of that. So she was very scared and she was crying. So we checking her just to make sure she's okay. And then when I commenced to getting off the floor, something felt weird on my hand. So I hold my hand out. Y'all, I look down and my pinky is hanging by the first joint. And I'm looking at my teachers. I'm like, I can't straighten out my finger. I cannot straighten out my finger. But here's the tea.
Here's the
tea. At that point, I should have been calling 911. I called my husband first.
That's right.
I called my husband first, the person that I'm the most vulnerable with. And I say, babe, this is what happened at work. I'm staying calm. I said, my finger is bent and it will not straighten up. What should I do?
You called me pretty calm, though, and I was proud of you for that.
Thank God for the work.
You did a great job for that. You did a great job calling me and not really. Usually you would respond in a high intense.
What?
Anxious,
hysterical.
Right. But she was like, babe, my finger is
bent and I can't straighten it out.
I can't straighten it out.
What should I do?
Gave you some advice.
He said there's two things you can do. Either you can have, sounds like it's dislocated coming from a, athlete. He's pretty familiar with what I had described to him. Either you could have somebody pop it back in. If you know me, I'm not about playing games with anything medical.
Right.
He said you can drive yourself to the hospital. You can call 911. I was like, all right, you know what? I feel like I can drive myself to the hospital. I'm going to go ahead and do that. As soon as I hung up, baby, that pain came from out of nowhere. We got some real good health insurance. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and take this luxury ride in the ambulance so they can go ahead and get me to ER.
Right. But what our listeners need to know that you have a clumsy gene, though.
I do, but in my defense of me and my clumsy gene,
right. Okay.
This was intentional. This was like a not even thought out reaction.
It was
to prevent. It was instincts to prevent when these kids are with me. They my kids.
Right. That's right.
To prevent one of these babies from.
That's right.
Getting an injury I would have to explain to a parent. And don't get me wrong, things happen, but that one right there, that one would have been ugly.
So I take that back.
Yeah.
You are clumsy, but that don't have nothing
actually
to do.
The way I responded, there was nothing clumsy about it.
So let me just tell you though, I was surprised though because you didn't wait. So the following day, you didn't have any achy bones.
Nah.
That's girl, you strong. Girl, you strong.
No, it's so funny because Teacher Autumn, our baby, she was like, I really thought that when you got up that your back or something was going to be wrong with you. I'm like, my body still feels good. This is what,
that's that core.
3 days later? Like, no, I'm taking care of myself. And to top it off, I'm in the middle of a 14-day detox.
Let me share the funny part. Look, so listen, hold on. So listen, we are doing a detox while all of this is happening, right?
Lord have mercy.
So listen, my daughter, she is like, one thing about my daughter, if you are sad, she is going to be sad with you.
Just like if you're happy,
she's going to be happy with you. But in this case, my daughter world has ended. You understand me? So I'm taking my wife out just to get out the house. Let's go over here. Let's go have a bite to eat, and then let's go to this location, and we're just gonna just relax. My daughter texts my wife and say, "Mom, if I were you, I would just say, throw away the detox. You need some calamari. You need some wine. You need some rice. You need some
wings and some lemon drops."
I was like, audience getting ready to have you in a hole that you are not going to be able to come out of.
I'm like, Autumn, I am 5 days strong. I'm like, one thing don't have nothing to do with the other.
Autumn was like, yes, it do. Where the calamari? I need the food. We're going to emotional eat. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel better.
So to say that I did not give in, I am still on my detox. I am looking at day 7, day 8, strong in the face, feeling good. Body's feeling healthy.
Show the war wound though.
But my hand, y'all,
it's still dingling. So she has to go back to the hospital.
Up. If I take this splint off right now, my pinky's just gonna hang by itself. So
I don't want to see that.
Yeah, he don't want to see it.
I've been playing doctor though. I've been keeping it bandaged. So one of the benefits about you being handicapped right now, my wife needs me to help her put her bra on. She needs me to help put the baby all over her body. She needs
your kids gonna hear this episode.
Them kids know how their daddy is. She needs me to help her with everything. I do. So that is one of the benefits.
I do. And shout out to the big girl, Autumn. Like, she's been cooking. She's been doing the grocery shopping. And she just spent all day in the room with us yesterday, just being present and just being in the moment with me. But in all truth and honesty, in the spirit of the topic that we're going to talk about, which is vulnerability,
okay,
I will have to say that this moment right now with me working with one hand and needing help from you and Autumn and the kids, whoever else can lend a hand to me, is also creating a huge vulnerable space inside of me.
Oh.
You know that if I could do it all, I'm going to do it all. And right now, I can't even oil up my own body.
Right.
I can't even fold the clothes in my basket. My husband's like, you want me to fold your clothes? He's like, I know you're particular about it. And I'm like, no, that's okay. I'm going to figure out how to fold it. So I'm still learning how to, maneuver and function with using one hand and 3 fingers. But it's really creating a vulnerable space in me because I have to ask for help. When I don't want to ask for help, the past 3 days, I've had to ask for help, and I've had to be okay with, like, y'all, I don't really know what y'all gonna eat this week. I don't know what the meal prep gonna look like. Y'all gonna eat, but I'm not sure if it's gonna be perfect like I like it to be. So it's really creating this experience. I know we talked about whenever we go through things like when you broke your foot, like, what's the lesson? Already, I can tell that this experience is making me realize that I can't control everything and I have to be okay with some things being how they are, which will reduce anxiety, which will reduce a lot of things, and just go with the flow. Because right now there's certain things that I just can't do, and there's no way I can do it. So I can't be in control of it.
At this moment.
So I'm vulnerable. I said it. I said it.
At this moment, with you being vulnerable, I can honestly say that I'm starting to feel some insecurities about your handicap.
You are?
Because not some insecurities about your handicap, but some insecurities in me, because I can't fulfill the role that you play in our house.
Yikes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do my best. The kids and I are going to do our best to step up.
Right.
But the role that you play, that's mommy's role.
Right.
You know, and can't nobody do it like mommy.
Right.
But to make a long story short, though, we're going to step up and we're going to do what we have to do. But in this moment, I feel like, oh, next week, y'all, you know, I can't cook. Like, I can get some, go to the freezer.
You can go to the freezer. You can make some breakfast. You can figure out ways to survive.
I can make some mashed potatoes and some.
Yeah, but the caveat is we just let our people know that we are doing a detox. So it's like we're not down for just eating like anything.
So
you know?
we can't just order out.
Right.
All
right.
But it's all good. Though. I'm ready to dive into it. So this means that we're getting ready to be intimate, because there's no way that you can be vulnerable and not intimate. So this is already feeling like it's getting ready to be a close and naked conversation.
Absolutely.
I appreciate nakedness.
You do. So it, like, just in the spirit of vulnerability, that has not been my strong suit.
Right.
And with us getting ready to talk about vulnerability, I realized that I've gotten a lot better in the area.
Yes, you have.
However, it's still an area where I could focus on and, you know, just put some practice into it when necessary. Because my idea of vulnerability means that you have to be open and you have to become accessible to others in an emotional way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So when I think of vulnerability, I also think about, like, you have to be willing to be seen. Like, right now, I feel very seen with this injury. Like,
right.
I feel seen. Like, the things that I can't do, I have to be okay with them, or else it'll make me feel some kind of way and potentially create some sort of mental stress around it and send me down a rabbit hole that I'm just not about to go down.
I mean, the thing is, though, that's the thing about vulnerability. You have to be willing to show up as you are. Like you said, you have to be willing to be seen. And the reason that we're not willing to be seen is because, honestly, with being vulnerable, you have to even also expose the shame, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You know, I know with me, in my practice of when I started to intentionally become vulnerable, the things that stood up in me the most was the fear of not being good enough. Even let's just say with the podcast, we have a podcast that it's a couples podcast. It's a husband and wife podcast. Right. Now we're out there into the world. The things I heard before I even started this podcast, where you're going to expose your own self.
Right.
You can possibly mess up, and then people put it all over social media. Because we're not exempt from hardships. No. We're not exempt from going through conflict in a relationship. So one of my areas when I was ready to start this podcast, I had to be vulnerable enough, like you say, you know what? I have to lean into it. It is what it is. I'm on a mission. We have a husband and wife podcast, a couples podcast. We're becoming intimate. We wanted to have a community where we can show people some real life.
Right.
We're actually being vulnerable with boundaries.
Right.
You know, we tell 98% of everything.
We do.
You know, everything is not for the world.
Right.
But we wanted to give our community enough authenticity, enough vulnerability where you can see what it's like behind the scenes in real life.
I mean, well said, brother. Because brother. Stupid. Also, like when you are vulnerable, you open the doors to potentially being hurt.
Right.
So when you're vulnerable, especially like let's just say in a relationship, and you choose to be vulnerable, there's a possibility through that vulnerability that you're choosing that you could get hurt. And so the fear of being hurt, because we all know what that feels like, can also stop you from being vulnerable.
So here's the thing, though. Because you said there's a fear there of possibly being hurt.
Yeah.
There is actually no way that you can be vulnerable without accepting uncertainty.
Very true.
There's no way that you can be vulnerable without accepting that it's risky.
Right.
There's no way that you can be vulnerable without accepting that it takes courage to be vulnerable.
It does.
Because it's so much backlash that can come with it if everything fails. It's that uncertainty.
Right.
That we are afraid of.
Right.
By becoming vulnerable in our relationships, vulnerable in our friendships, vulnerable with certain information about us.
Right.
It's just because behind vulnerability is also the monster of shame.
Right.
And guilt.
Right. And
embarrassment.
Embarrassment. But I want to back it up a second because you said something that clearly, like, my mind just it stuck there. You said vulnerable with boundaries.
Right.
Love that. Love that so much, because when you talk through vulnerability and you think through vulnerability and you exercise vulnerability, I personally feel that everyone doesn't deserve your most vulnerable part of you.
No.
Right? So vulnerability to me is done best like in your safe space with your safe people. Now, in my life and in my circle, like, there is a very small amount of people that I'm willing to be vulnerable with. And I've learned that just through life, maturation, experience, that everybody doesn't deserve to know that most vulnerable side of Big Shay, because it is intimate, it is sacred, and it does lay me before you pretty naked, which everybody just doesn't deserve that side of me.
Right.
So as I'm personally navigating through what it means to be vulnerable, and that vulnerability is actually a positive thing.
It's a strength.
I pick and choose. I pick and choose who I share with. I pick and choose, really mostly for me, who gets to see that naked emotional side of me.
Right.
Because it's easy for me to give you just enough and keep it moving. Very easy. But it's hard for me to give people that intimate, emotional, how I'm really feeling, what I'm really processing, and just to be super transparent, because that transparency also opens the door to healing, help, love, support. You feel more courageous. You take the load off your back and can move forward in whatever situation that you may be going through.
It's a good point, because the reality of things, Big Shay, is relationships, period, is all about the law of reciprocity.
That's good.
And you made a statement just now saying that everyone doesn't deserve that vulnerable place. And I 200% agree with that.
Good.
Well, here's the thing, though, about vulnerability. And when when you're not vulnerable, you're basically saying that you have some emotions that are closed off, shut down.
Well, go deeper, Big Charles.
Right? Would you agree with that?
100%.
So when you say that you have some emotions that are closed off and shut down, here's the thing about when you shut down emotions. You cannot shut down, you cannot handpick what emotion that you want to shut down without affecting the other emotions that you are naturally born with. You can't say, I'm going to be closed off in this area and then say I'm going to really 100% enjoy, experience happiness and joy in this area. This is the thing about emotions and being cut off and not being vulnerable.
I love where you're going with this.
You see what I'm saying?
I do. I love where
you
you're
don't
going
get
with
to
this.
pick and choose. You know what? I'm going to shut off right today.
I love where you're going with this.
Because energy is everything. Energy is everything. So because if you are a shut off person, if you are a closed off person, guess what? That means that you're not giving everything to me. You're not giving me happiness. You're not giving me who you really are, because you don't get to pick and choose what emotion that you're going to close off without it affecting the other emotions.
Yeah. Can I just help a little bit?
Go ahead.
With a little example. And this example, I'm going to get a little bit personal.
Okay.
If that's okay. So when you just said that you can't pick and choose what emotion
You want to
you
shut
off with, I just want to shut it off over here.
Right.
So for example, I'm gonna just bring it full circle to make it. Can I make it plain?
You can make it plain.
So for me, as I've been on this healing journey, haven't always been vulnerable with my husband, haven't always been vulnerable with my children, haven't always been vulnerable with my own self, right? And so what I've come to realize just by listening to you, but also being able to be fully transparent about it. Why? Because that's no longer the story, right? Tell the story now because I'm no longer in that place. So there was a point in time in our relationship, in our marriage, that I was not completely vulnerable with you.
Right.
And I wasn't vulnerable with you because there were areas in my life that had caused a lot of hurt, pain, trauma that I didn't understand and had never really dealt with. So I chose to close off in a certain kind of way because of those unhealed areas in my life, unspoken, untalked about areas in my life. So then I wasn't being transparent with you. I wasn't being fully vulnerable with you. And now that I think about those times when I wasn't vulnerable with you, I also wasn't vulnerable with my kids. I also wasn't vulnerable with myself. So that means that I showed up to the world in the relationships that matter the most to me,
Right.
not giving my full self,
Yeah.
but thinking that I could camouflage that and that I was, but not knowing that I was really exposed.
Right.
But I was willing to continue to give 50% of Big Shay just because I didn't know how to be vulnerable and I didn't know the power of vulnerability.
So here's the thing, though. Did I cut you off?
You did.
All right. Well, keep going then.
But go ahead.
No. Go ahead. There's a thing of power of vulnerability. I don't want to be rude.
No. It's go. It's all right.
So, because
You feel something. You got to say it. Just it's cool.
It's just the fact that there's an unspoken language in all of us that none of us realize that we are speaking when it comes to spirituality and energy. So I don't care how we had happy moments. We were happy still.
Absolutely.
We still had a great marriage.
Absolutely.
Why you were still closed off, you know? But it's still a more powerful energy that supersedes the natural when certain chakras or when certain emotions are closed off.
Absolutely.
So when my wife, and thank you for sharing this, when my wife wasn't all the way vulnerable with me, as a husband, I can feel that. And what that would do is, for me, that will trigger point my insecurities or my fears and my vulnerabilities. Why? okay, I can tell you're not being all the way vulnerable with me. So why would I want to be all the way vulnerable with you?
Right.
If that makes sense.
Complete.
And honestly, when you say that when a person says that they're afraid of being vulnerable, that means they are afraid to tell people and show people who they really are. So when I went through my maturation of accepting and leaning into vulnerability, I was able to grow, do my homework, do my research, do my application. Then I can see where you were coming from, and even in your vulnerability, which allowed me to even have grace for you as well. And but my point that I was making is, when you weren't being vulnerable, it made me feel like, and this is years in marriage, it made me feel like I'm laying in bed with someone that I really don't know to the core of her. And I felt like that wasn't fair.
Right.
So I'm saying to the listeners, when you're being closed off and you think you're hiding something, there's an unspoken, more powerful energy that you can't even explain. And people can read that. People can tell that. It's just like, you can cut me off whenever you get ready. It's just like in friendships. You can tell when there are surface level relationships, when you only talk about certain things. You don't want to talk about intimate things.
Right.
And that can affect the other person on the other end that's actually being vulnerable.
That's true. Yep.
If I'm trying to like bring it together, it's like how you gonna. It's the same things in a marriage. It's the same thing in a friendship.
And here's the thing. I'm gonna cut you off now. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Here's the thing. Because I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because it really speaks volume to. Just like speaks volume to how you can extend grace when you know better, right? Because like I just said, a few years ago, I was not your most vulnerable person. I think even so much so that even on the Big Dog Talk podcast, they are getting another side of me because I did the work outside of...
You're doing it.
Outside of the mic. So whether they like it, don't like me, like what Big Shay talking about... I really don't care. Why? Because I'm really and truly showing up who I really am, right? So I'm saying that to say, when healing is a journey, right? Today we're just talking about one aspect of it, which just so happens to be vulnerability, which trickles down into other areas of our life and our relationship and how we show up into the world. But you brought up a point where when you understand the power of vulnerability, but you may be in relationship with someone like you were with me, or you may have a friendship where, the other end is not being vulnerable, you are able to give them grace, just like you gave me grace. You can extend that grace where it needs to go, because you understand that them not showing up vulnerable has nothing to do with the fact that they don't want you to know. They just want to keep secret.
It's fear there.
It's fear there. And they have just not tapped into that part of their journey to heal that area in order to be the best, show up as their best self in those particular relationships.
Exactly.
Because you could have done something very different if you weren't the husband that had been doing the work for many, many years and able to extend grace to me when I was not being vulnerable, shutting down, not wanting to have real conversations, not want to talk about have tough conversations to impact and extend the health of our marriage. You could have very easily got frustrated with me, and that could have very easily sent us...
Wait.
You did get frustrated.
Wait.
You did.
Let's be 3,000 about it.
You were frustrated.
I was very frustrated.
Very.
And the reason that I can have so much vulnerability and grace, so much grace for you, because I know how much grace I needed from God. Nobody can tell me anything. I know me.
Right.
Nobody can tell me anything about me that I don't know about myself, from the strengths to the weaknesses, from the light into the darkness. I know me. Right. And what kept me there, what kept me in that place of grace, and it's because, like I said, I'm a jacked up person. And like I said, relationships is about law of reciprocity. Very true. It wasn't like I wasn't getting anything out of our relationship. Right. You hear what I'm saying? Right. Because if I wasn't getting anything out of the relationship, you know what? I probably would have walked away. Right. Because it got that bad. Right. But I still was getting I still was getting a lot out of the relationship. So
Right.
again, I gave you grace because I'm a man of foresight, of vision, and I knew how much grace I need from God. I don't never want to portray as a perfect person.
Right. Right.
But anyway, back to your story.
No, I mean, you just took the mic and you just threw it down right there. Thank you, Big Charles.
But okay, can I say something right quick?
Absolutely, yeah.
But it still doesn't mean that it doesn't affect the relationship.
That's what I was trying to get to. So I wanted to pick your thought process a little bit because I know that you were frustrated, but when you're talking about like in an intimate relationship where it be a married couple or where it be a relationship where
Friends.
no, people have chosen monogamy. They're in a relationship, but they may not be married, but they're in a serious relationship. There's, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're in a relationship building, but they may not just be married, right? It does get frustrating. And I feel like when you're more invested in something like a marriage or a long-term relationship, are there different, like, you can extend grace to me in that situation, but in a friendship relationship, is there a certain level of grace that's extended? Like the same amount of work? Because obviously we're gonna put 1,000% into our marriage to sustain it, make it better, keep growing, keep learning for a healthy marriage. But if the other person, like in more of a platonic friend situation, is not at a point of even kind of having those conversations with, what happens?
So this is just my perspective. In the marriage, you have a lot more invested in the marriage.
Absolutely.
You and I, we have children. We have, you know what I mean? We have home. We have, you know what I mean? We have business. We have so much invested. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put everything. I'm going to give it all I got before I decide to even walk away. We have children, and one of the best things you can give children is a happy home.
Right.
Right. And so as far as marriage and friendships is not the same.
It's
not. No. I'm willing. I was willing to. First of all, I give you the highest honor because you gave me children.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's definitely not going to be the same as the homie or the bro.
Right.
Or a girlfriend.
Right.
It's definitely not going to, because you gave me more.
Right. Right.
Law of reciprocity.
Right.
You hear what I'm saying?
I do.
And then when it comes to friendships, you just get to a place of acceptance. Okay, I know this person is not going to be. This person is not going to be vulnerable with me how I am with them. And that's okay. But the growth stops there.
Right.
It stops on that level, that floor that you're on.
Right.
It cannot get any deeper.
Right. So there's like the energy that you put into it.
Yeah.
You pull back a little.
It's not that you pull. You stop it.
Accept it. Yeah. This is
it
what
is.
It is.
What it
yeah.
is. It's not going to go any further than this. You don't want me to know any personal things about you.
Right.
I don't care if you know personal things about me, but obviously you don't want to talk about these things to me. I'm not as close as I expected or I thought that we were.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
But as life goes on, here's the thing though. Once you experience another set of friends or another person that's more vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
Are you following me?
Absolutely.
So you already have a relationship with this person over here, and it's not as vulnerable, and that's okay.
Right.
But you got a relationship over here that's vulnerable, and they connect on a deeper level.
Right.
One thing about it though, once you leave from an old relationship and go into a new relationship, and that new relationship is better than the old relationship, you never want to go back.
Right.
You follow me?
I do.
So I wouldn't have any hard feelings. I wouldn't have any ill will.
Right.
But when time keeps evolving, you grow space from each other.
Right.
When I see you, what's up? How you doing? Good to see you.
Right.
You understand?
I do. So, but I like what you said about just come to a place of acceptance. Yeah. Because one thing just about life is that people come into your life for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. So there's always an ever flow of people coming in and people going out, people coming in and people going out. And so, to the point that you just made, you know, the creator, God might bring somebody into your life for the season of where you are, and that person is vulnerable, and you guys can connect on a deeper level. So it kind of reprioritizes, you know, who you like to have conversations with, who you like to spend your time with, because there's just really so much in common to talk about at that season in your life.
Well, and plus, we don't like people like us. We don't like small talk.
Can't stand it.
Like we really
Pet
don't.
peeve, Paul. A pet peeve of Big Shay. I do not like small talk.
Right.
I don't.
Right. Right. I think every person should only have.
Okay, so Stella don't like small talk either. The bird. She don't like small talk.
I think if you're gonna have small talk, you only can have like one friend that you have small talk with. Like that's it. You can't have, because I don't do small talk either.
Here's the thing.
You know me, I don't even like repeat myself more than twice.
You don't. And so we're not going to go down a rabbit hole about small talk, but I think it's relevant to where we are at this point in this conversation. When you are working on life and elevating your life in all the areas, personal development, you know, investment, financial, fitness, finances, and family, when you're really focused on elevating all the areas of your life, which are all the things that we focus on the Big Dog Talk podcast, you don't really have time or energy to dumb down your conversation to talk about nothing. Because me personally, I always want to be talking about something that is feeding me what I need to get to the next level. There's always a next level.
So to bring it back full circle, like vulnerability, there's power there. So it's depth there, it's value there, you know, and reason you don't really like, you don't have space for small talk because you know what it's like for your heart to be open now.
I do.
You know what it feels like for that area of your life to like stream. It's like a flowing river.
I do. And because of that, because of the openness, I'm always looking and listening for the next thing that I need to flow into on this journey of my life for elevation, for next level. So, saying all of that, has there ever been, let's get personal, even more personal for you. I think I got personal. Has there ever been a moment in your life, Big Charles, where you felt very vulnerable?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What was it? How did it show up, and how did you have to like exercise being vulnerable in order to, deal with it?
I can think of. So, I grew up in the church, and I say I was heavy in the church.
Right.
When a lot of my, if you haven't ever experienced, if you haven't been a listener, a lot of my pain came from the religious world. And I'm over it. That's why I can speak about it and speak on it.
Right.
But a lot of my pain came from the religious world. So when we had our son out of wedlock, and how even how I was set down, and then how people were distant from me.
Right.
I remember being in my apartment, not having nobody to talk to, like for a week, just me.
Right.
You can, and I see now like why I was so I was open. The spotlight was on me. Right. Here it is. This preacher's kid got a baby out of wedlock. He's a minister, up and coming minister. But the guilt that human beings made me feel behind it, I felt like it wasn't necessary. Like it was very judgmental.
Right.
So, as if none of us make mistakes. Mine is just out there in the open.
Exactly.
So I was hurt by the response. By like I said, people will distance themselves from me, but at the same time, it also gave me power at the same time, because it showed me a lot about human beings. It showed me a lot about rules, and it showed me a lot about people's mindset.
Right.
You know, and at the end of the day, it's going to be many of times where, let's just say, our children mess up.
Right.
And they're going to have to come to us and tell us something that's very disappointing. I want to make them feel like, no matter what, I got you. We going to get through this together.
Right. Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, when I had those same people, right, that distanced themselves from me, are the same people now that's like influenced by me. You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. And your story that you're sharing with me, I just want to give a shout out to my new homegirl. She old, but she new, Sarah Jakes.
Right.
I absolutely love Sarah Jakes. And what brought her to my mind just now in this moment was that, shout out to the Woman Evolve conference that she just had in Texas. I wish I was there. I'm not going to miss the next one. But since I couldn't be there, I kind of went back on Woman Evolve 2022 on YouTube, and I came up on the video where she was talking about vulnerability. But in her story of sharing her most vulnerable moment, she spoke about when she had her first baby at the age of 16.
Right.
And what that felt like for her, being raised in the church,
right,
being a daughter of a huge pastor and first lady, TD Jakes.
My daddy used to drive TD Jakes around, by the way.
Yes, yes. And what that felt like. And so when I listened to her share her most vulnerable moment around having that being a teenage mother,
a lot of scrutiny come behind
and
that.
how that made her feel, and like the rabbit hole that it sent her down, to see her now use that moment, just like you just said, and just like what I just said, take those moments and you use it to catapult your life, your experience, and your strength and your courage to the next level. Everything is meant to be an experience.
Baby.
Everything is meant to have a lesson.
Baby.
And so shout out to Sarah Jake. Shout out to you, Big Charles. And I'm going to even big up myself, because we just shared some of our most vulnerable moments, but flipped it and used it to make ourselves better.
Hold on, baby.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Woman Evolve. I'll see y'all in 2024.
Here's the thing, though. So much scrutiny came with that vulnerable moment.
So much
scrutiny, so much people whispering about me, so many people talking about me, so much. I mean, the pastor even said to me in my face, "You got that girl pregnant out of wedlock." You see what I'm saying? So imagine a 23, 24-year-old. I'm in a dark place right now. You know what I mean? I'm already bringing embarrassment upon not just myself, but my mom and my dad, who have a high influence.
Yeah.
You understand me? But I tell you what, though.
They have a high influence from California to Mississippi.
I tell you what,
Big
though.
spread.
I tell you what, though. As I sat in that dark place, in that vulnerable moment, and God was dealing with me, God showed me a lot about humanity. God showed me a lot about myself. God showed me a lot about religion. And God say, I tell you what, they can talk about you. They can whisper everything they want about you, but they still can't take the gift that I've gave you.
Absolutely.
You are still anointed. Matter of fact, I'm going to use that to make your words even more powerful.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do. And that was the kickoff.
I had a point to prove.
That was the kickoff.
Yeah,
right
all y'all
there.
talking about me, but I use it as fuel, as fire. All of you. But when you hear that passion in my voice, you hear that pain when everybody turned on me as well. When you hear that passion in my voice, you hear a story that I had to go through. When you hear that pain in my voice, you hear a test that I had to pass that made me moan. You understand?
Absolutely.
Man, you better stop playing with me.
Listen.
You better stop playing with me.
Listen, Big Charles, don't stop if you got something to say.
You better stop playing with me. There's power in vulnerability. Let me tell you something. When you open yourself up to the world, you're getting me going, Big Shay. When you open up yourself to the world, let me tell you something about that. When you just lean into vulnerability, when you lean into it, because it's very scary to be vulnerable, but when you have the courage to lean into it, and show people who you really are, not showing up in a way who you think they think you should be, but show up as Big You, show up as Big Shay, show up as Big Charles. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, leave it. But I'll tell you what, when you show up as who you are, you become more transparent, you become more relatable. You cannot be a person that connects with people and not be vulnerable at the same time.
Can't do it.
You can't be real and not be vulnerable at the same time. You can't be a person that keep it 1,000 and 3,000 if you aren't able to be vulnerable. No, I'm not saying vulnerable in a way where I just cry every moment. Oh, I'm crying, I'm telling you all my problems, because at some point you can fake it till you make it.
Period.
That's faking.
Yeah.
But I'm saying where I show you my flaws. Back to my point I was getting ready to make. When you're not afraid to show people your flaws, they cannot use your weaknesses to imprison you.
Embarrass you.
To throw shame on you.
No shade, no shame.
So back to the beginning where I was scared of this podcast in the beginning because it was a husband and it's showing we are exposing our relationship to the world.
Yep.
At this point, I don't even care. You know by now that Big Charles and Big Shay, we are 3,000. We were real, organic, authentic. At this point, it doesn't control me anymore.
Right.
I've leaned into it.
Right.
I've accepted the fact that what comes with being vulnerable is uncertainty. What comes with being vulnerable is taking risks. What comes with being vulnerable, you just don't know. It's
imperfection too.
It's accepting all of that.
Accepting all the imperfections. And like you said.
I'm sorry for yelling, baby. I'm sorry.
Didn't I tell you about that dang on yelling?
You just coached me. You did. I can't help it. I can't help it.
That's that preacher inside of you.
I can't help it.
Just can't get away. But keeping it real. Mm-hmm. We've kept it real today.
Right.
We've kept it real. We kept it 100. We've kept it a buck. Mm-hmm. We showed up. Like we showed up. And this was our true intention today. Whenever I bring topics to Big Charles, it's real basic. Let's talk about vulnerability. So we never really know where it's going to go, but we always know that we want to be intentional and leave some gems with our listeners.
Right.
And so we've said a lot. We can keep going, but at this point, I think it's good to bring it full circle and leave our community of listeners and watchers, viewers with 2 to 3 good doggy treats, good points, some good things that they can chew on for the rest of the week around keeping it real, being vulnerable, and being like courageous through vulnerability. What you got, and you better not yell.
All right. I'm a whisper. Well, one of the PowerPoints that I said in the beginning is you cannot choose what emotion that you're going to shut off without it affecting the other emotions. So you can't close yourself off and say, you know what, I'm not going to be vulnerable without really expressing like real happiness and real joy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
One thing, I'm gonna give you 3 things. Being vulnerable, it takes courage. It takes acceptance that you can possibly get hurt. It takes being a risk taker. And it takes a knowing that although I can possibly get hurt, I can accept that I can possibly get hurt and I'm going to bounce back from it. Right?
Absolutely.
Another thing, another doggy treat that I would want you to take away is there's power in vulnerability. Vulnerability is just showing up as who you really are and not who they think you should be. And some of you may be asking me, well, how do I do that? Because I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. You just have to lean into it. This is the moment where I'm afraid of people I'm ashamed of this part of my story. But you know what? I'm going to lean into it. Mm-hmm. How can I use it for my glory? Because at the end of the day, every one of us have a glory about us.
Absolutely.
That we need to pick up and walk with it.
I love that.
Big Charles, God energy.
I love that. I love that. And if I had to say anything, good job, Big Charles, I would just say show up, show out, and be big about it. Signing off. Big Shay.
Love you, baby.
Love you. Y'all pray for my finger.